Meanwhile, we're awaiting a decision to see whether Apple will face a class action lawsuit over manipulating speeds of those older iPhones and just how big of a deal this is. To attorneys David Pietro and Deborah Bloom. David, let me start with you here. A big uproar about this. A lot of people, I think enough people said that this happened that we kind of know that it did. And I guess the big question here is, was it deliberate? And how liable is Apple going to be if so?
At the end of the day, all these class action cases, the only one that really ever makes money are the trial lawyers. How many of us have gotten those notices in the mail with 2-point font that we throw away, or a check for $1? It becomes sort of ridiculous. It's a war between trial lawyers and big corporations. Apple's got some issues because they admitted that early in 2017 that their new iOS 10 was slowing down the older phones. And they're trying to convince consumers that their phones in a staggering market for cell phones is worth $1,000. And it begs the question, was it deliberate? Did they know about it? And it really puts some brand hurting on Apple, which has been the dominant force in the cell phone industry. And Barclays says this is going to cost the stock or cost the company at least $10 million. But I think at the end of the day, the consumer shouldn't really expect much other than Apple's going to be a little more cognizant of the effects of their new iOS in the future, slowing down cell phones and hurting their consumers.
Right. Deborah, there's no doubt a negative outcome for this probably would do a lot more damage to the stock than any sort of fine or penalty. Nevertheless, though, you do wonder, a company as big as Apple, what's going on currently with Facebook and Amazon, this is not the time to be in front of a judge about deliberately harming your customers.
Well, I agree with what David was saying. At the end of the day, as a result of the last lawsuit, the people that were involved in the lawsuit got about $15 each. This is a question of transparency. Did Apple warn its customers in the disclaimer that their phone would be slowed down? Did they say, is this masking a defect? Was it done secretly? Those are the questions that I think are going to be at the focus of the lawsuit. And today in Atlanta, members of these lawsuits are meeting to determine which state is going to take the lead and which lawyer is going to take the lead. Apple itself might be in trouble with the SEC and the Justice Department, and that could be an even bigger issue.
David, of course, in the meantime, Tim Cook taking the sort of high road in the midst of this Facebook fiasco, saying they could certainly leverage their user data. They can make a lot of money by exploiting that, and they haven't. Are those sort of deliberate also to sort of counter these sort of claims and others? Because customers have been frustrated with Apple for a long time.
I mean, that's like saying we didn't do a lot of bad things. We only did one bad thing. I mean, that doesn't bode very well when you're supposed to act ethically as a big multinational corporation. So I think Apple did the right thing by offering a new battery for a lower price. But it begs the question as to consumers when they're going to buy an Apple. And not every consumer is the consumer who buys a new phone every single year. Some people, older people, might like to keep it for 2-3 years. Maybe they'll get a Google phone or another kind of phone because they know down the road that this phone won't slow down when the new phone every year comes out. Yeah. So it's really a question of the ethics of the corporation, and doing the right thing is expected, not we did a lot of right, only one wrong thing, and we could have done a lot worse.
And Deborah,
I don't know if that
works. Gets back to your point, of course. There could be some other bigger woes for Apple resulting from this than just a class action lawsuit. Thank you both very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.